You're listening to Good Question, a podcast for the curious by Compassion Christian Church. I'm Blair Bauman, the Compassion Online Director. Excited you are here, and today we are going to be joined by Courtney, Schuette, and Crystal Perry. They are two of our friends here at Compassion. We are excited to be talking a little bit today, and the episode is going to be called Wanna Be Friends. That's right, we are talking about adult friendship, and it is important, something we wanted to discuss. We're going to hear from a woman's perspective today, but don't worry, men, we're going to hear from you in our next episode. So you might be able to learn something here today, too. We're excited to have you join us with love and curiosity in your heart as we navigate friendship together. Well, Courtney and Crystal, I'm very excited to have you guys here. Side joke, you guys, this idea was Courtney's.
Yeah,
it was.
Props to Courtney is the method of this story. Thank you guys for being willing to do this. Let's start off just explaining who you are, your connection to Compassion, and then also like the stage of life you're in. Fair?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, Courtney, you go first.
Okay, my name is Courtney. We have been in Savannah for about 9 years. We moved here. My husband is a pastor here. We've been married for, I think, 13 years. We got married in 2009. He was the math major, not me. I work part-time at the church. I'm a ministry assistant to the kids team, and we have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to know?
They're pretty epic kids, too.
Okay,
I'll give you credit for that.
There's something.
Yeah. Crystal.
Well, hello. I'm Crystal. I am the creative content coordinator here at Compassion. I moved here last April, so April of 21, so a little bit over a year I've been here. And I'm not married. I'm a single Pringle. Woo. And, yeah. I don't know. I think that's, yeah. Oh, how did I get connected here? I heard about Compassion through a friend that I was like working with, and then came here, visited a few of the campuses, and I came to Henderson November of last year, and then took Growth Track and started serving, and then in January started working here. So
it's a fast process.
Yeah, fast.
Well, I am married. I've been married for only 5 years. No kids. Full-on cat mom, though. Take a lot of responsibility in that one. And so what's interesting is the fact that all of us are in different stages of life and also friends, right? Yeah. I mean, am I being bold to say that I'm your
you're not being bold.
We've all hung out, so we're friends.
That counts.
The idea was at my house on the couch, so
there we go.
Close friends.
Yes, there we go. Good. I'm glad we've established that now. I just want to talk a little bit because adult friendships are hard. They're awkward and they can be really challenging. And today we're getting like a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
We promised you guys a men's perspective is coming. But I want to talk a little bit about what has your guys' experience with adult friendship kind of looked like?
I think for me it wasn't a muscle that I feel like I had to use until I was in my 20s. I mean, I went to public school and there's people around all the time to hang out with. And even in college, I went to a large college, so I stepped out of my dorm room. There was people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was out of college where I realized my ability to make friends determined whether or not I had friends. So if I was willing to step outside of my box, invite somebody for coffee, invite them over to my house, that was dependent on me making an effort.
Yeah. For me, in a way, it's similar to when I was younger because I've moved like every 3 or 4 years since I was a kid, and so it's been the same still as an adult, like moving around a bunch. So I feel like I've been pretty good at like initiating relationships and like talking to people at first, but I have and still struggle with like going deeper into a relationship with somebody and maintaining that and like still being friends with them after a few years. Because like at first, you know, it's cool to get to know like the basic things, but like after a while, either I'll move or I'll get bored and just leave, which I'm aware of, but I'm working on it. So it's been tricky.
Yeah. I think that's so true, though. Like, I myself, actually Roxy, who also works at Compassion in the creative content team, she said this to me one time, and I like it has changed my perspective of how I like interpret myself. She was like, sometimes I think that I can make a good first impression, but it's hard because I feel like I'm going to let people down after that first impression. And I 100% felt that to my core because there are so many times I'm like, I can come out the gate and be really fun and intentional with people, But like when it comes to that going deeper, I'm like, I'm going to let them down. I'm going to be disappointing when I'm like, no, I don't want to hang out today.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I don't have it in me. Or like, I'm actually pretty introverted at times and reserved. And so I can't always be that come out the gates, hey, I'm Blair. You know what I mean? Like that's hard to maintain all the time in friendships. And so I notice myself in that phase of like, I don't want to let people down. So then I just pull away.
Yeah.
Which is also a weird thing to admit as an adult that like, I'm not 100% confident. Or am I like showing something that I'm not? Like, how do I do that?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Roxy actually said to me too. Thanks, Roxy.
She's a wisdom, a fount of wisdom.
She said, I think either you're not aware of what you're projecting to other people, or you don't see yourself the way other people see you. Something along those lines. And it like freaked me out in a way, but it was like good to like hear that, because I was like, oh, what am I? Like, how am I projecting myself to other people? And similar to you, like, yeah, I can be all friendly and woo right at first, but what is it long term?
Yeah.
I feel that in my stage of life, for sure, of being married to working parents and to kids, that if I initially start to get to know someone, really like them, am I going to be able to meet their expectations of friendship? Because I only have a limited amount of time. So I think I myself pull back and don't step out and continue the friendship as much as I desire to, because I want to be able to be the friend that they need.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you kind of just hit on it, but like the status of your life, so for myself, being married, being single, having children, having a working husband, does that make it really hard? Do you think it defines some of your friendships because you're already in this space of like, this is my level of investment, etc.? Does it change all of that?
I definitely think it plays a part into it. Like for me, like you said, I'm single and I don't have kids. And so I feel like I have friends in a lot of different stages of life. And in a way, it's cool. It's great. Love hanging out with you guys. But at the same time, I don't have many friends that are in my same like age, or I don't think age is really important, but like stage of life. Like I have people that are in college, and then I have like you guys married with kids and that sort of thing. And it definitely plays a part, like me wanting to be friends with somebody that will understand where I'm coming from. But if I only think of it that way, then it's like, well, I'm being selfish. I need to also be willing to give in their lives too. But it's really easy for me to think, well, what can they give to me? They don't understand because they're in this different stage. So like they can't get me. But I just have to like open my mind and know it's okay to have different friends in different ages and different stages that are different, because we all have something to offer. Yeah.
Do you feel like having kids changes that?
Yeah, I think for sure. And the age of your kids changes it 100%. Because I was a stay-at-home mom until a couple years ago. And we were in a new city. So all those things together made it really hard. We moved here in November, which is a very hard time to move because people are traveling. And I wanted my kid to take naps. So I did join a mom's group because I thought I need to make connections. And I started working as a substitute at the church's preschool because I desired for my son to take naps, but I really needed to connect with other females. And Savannah is such a spread out city that I think also it plays into it and is a hard part of, we could have friends that we all don't live very close together. So we have to be strategic about getting together. Where people in my city, it's easier to connect with them because they're so close. And moms, I can ask certain people to pick up my kids because they're sort of in that same geographical area.
Yeah. It's funny because I notice myself, my friends that I have who have children, I feel like there's sometimes this feeling of like when you have friends who don't have kids, do you feel a tension about like inviting them to come hang out with you and your kids or to doing stuff like that?
We talked about this. Remember I said, would you want to come to the pool with us? Because in my head, I'm like, that wouldn't be fun for Blair because it's me and my husband and my 2 kids. And you said, yes, I would.
Right.
And people did that for me when we were pregnant. And it was sort of a mentoring, talking about what it means to be a mom. But they just invited us over for an average dinner. It wasn't serious. We didn't go out to eat.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything special. And we came and we enjoyed it and we felt loved. So I think that's something I put on myself of, I don't know that they want to step into the ordinary with me.
Yeah.
And so I don't ask when I should.
And it's so funny because like we'll talk about that because I enjoy being around my friends who have kids. Like their kids are fun. And I think it helps me understand them as like as humans a little bit more too. And it makes it less intimidating for me being around kids or like thinking about that phase of life when I decide to have kids, because like I've seen people walk it out well now, and I've understood what that journey looks like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this weird tension then for us because we're married, and we do have a lot of friends who are single and still like, you know, hanging out and doing all the everyday things, going out and doing things. So we also feel this tension of like, do we invite the married couple? Do you think that exists all the time of like, we just feel like it's hard for us to invite or to step out and ask someone who's in a different phase? I mean, you talked about the phases of life feeling so important. But is it important, or do you think we overcomplicate it?
I mean, I think it's important to some degree, but like I don't think it should be the end all be all, because like you were saying, like you see her parenting and like it makes you feel more like accustomed and used to kids. Like kids freak me out too. But like I watch you and some other moms and I'm like, oh, I like that technique. I like how they said this to their kid. And I've definitely watched that. So maybe one day when I am there, I can use this tip. But going back to your question, I don't know. That's a good question. I think sometimes we do put a lot of emphasis on like the stages, but I know for me, I've told myself I need to not do that as much, because if I did with my stage and my age, there's probably like 1-2 other people that I could hang out with. And so opening myself up to other stages has opened me up to being able to be friends with you guys and other people.
Yeah,
So.
that's good. I want to talk a little bit because I did some research before this, prepped a little bit. So one of the things that I think is important is to have conversations like this, which Courtney, you brought up when you first talked about this with us, is because the idea that like people don't talk about how hard and how strategic adult friendships can feel and like how intentional they must be, because now it's not like college where you're just like roaming around. I've got nothing to do for the next 2 hours. Want to hang out? Like, let's go get food. Let's do whatever. Like, no, we have to schedule it a month out because our calendars are full and there's like kids' schedules and then there's like all of these work dynamics and people are trying to put their careers first or their marriages first or whatever that might be. So it's like we all have different expectations. So I think for number one, it's important to know we're not alone and that there are other people trying to figure this out too. Like we are so quick to like remember the grace of God, but so slow to give it to ourselves, especially I think in this context of like friendships. Yeah. And so I just am appreciative of the fact that we're having this conversation in the first place. But some statistics from the Survey Center on American Life from 2021, here's what they found. So they did this study in 2021, for some context. It was like 2,000 people surveyed all over 50 states plus DC. And so they found that the percentage of Americans who say they have 0 close friends, so close friends, and this is not counting their relatives, in 1990, 3% of Americans said they had 0 close friends. And in 2021, it grew to 12%. So this is post-pandemic. And then the percentage they found that the percentage of people who have one person that they consider to be their best friend, so one person as their best friend, in 1990, it was 75% of people had one best friend. And in 2021, it was 59. So that even decreased a lot. So it's interesting to look at. But then another thing, specifically looking at women. So the study found that young women most likely to report losing touch with their friends during the pandemic. And then women are more likely than men to receive emotional support from their friends. I just thought those were really interesting. And then another study actually from Barna. So this one is from 2018, so it's pre-pandemic. But it showed that Americans are friendly but lonely. And I thought that was really interesting. They categorize themselves as having several friends, but being lonely in those friendships still. It also showed that we choose friends who are similar to us in religious beliefs, race, ethnicity, income, education level, social status, political views, and life stages. Yeah. Do these statistics sound accurate to what you guys have come to experience?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Yeah. And I think, especially with the last bit about basically people trying to find people that are very similar to them, I think a lot of times people want to find a replica of themselves in friendships, relationships, all sorts of things. And I don't think people know that's what they're doing. But yeah, like you want to find somebody that is just like you. Like you can talk about, we like the same things. We struggle with the same things. Yeah. And it's not necessarily good or bad, but
Well, and what's interesting is I thought, at least from my perspective, like that, the context of we choose people who are similar to us in religious, race, income, education, all of those things, right? And then also that context that women are likely to receive emotional support from their friends. Like the idea that I'm choosing people so similar to me to also provide me emotional support. So I'm only hearing one voice then, right? Like that, and that is kind of something that's hard for me to process is like, so when I am going through something and I'm looking to my friends for guidance, I'm getting the same perspective. Yeah. And sometimes I'm choosing which friend I'm going to for certain advice because I know what their advice is going to sound like. And the dangers that can exist in that of like operating in that silo kind of mentality. And like, so this was just, those statistics were interesting for me because it was like, oh man, how much have I already created my own friendship problems in some of these things that are just like the nature of how we do friends in America.
Another one I thought was interesting was the stat about Americans are friendly but lonely. I feel like I definitely can relate to that. Like, I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier or not, but like, I feel like I know a lot of people on the level 1 basis or like, you know, just surface level basis. Like people have said to me multiple times, oh, you have so many friends. I'm like, no, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people, but I don't have very many deep friendships. Some, and like I'm working on it. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that one.
Along that line then, how do you think we become intentional or have those deep relationships? Like how do we stretch the muscle to do that versus just having this like pool of acquaintances?
I mean, we've all had the chance to attend the Global Leadership Summit, and there was a lady, I don't remember her name. Do you remember?
Me neither.
Oh, I think it was
Daniela? No?
She did great.
We'll look it up and put it in the notes.
But basically, the gist of it was leveling up your questions. So having level 1, level 2, level 3. And I went out for lunch with a friend last week, and we really intentionally asked each other level 2 questions.
Really?
Good.
And it really changed our lunch. We could have just quickly said the things in our life of catching them up about the surfacey sort of things, but to really, in that an hour-ish time, to get to the heart of how they were really doing, it made a huge difference. And it sounds so clinical in a way to have levels of questions, but it made a huge difference. So I think being willing to ask questions that are a little more vulnerable.
That are going to get somewhere.
What was your experience when you asked those questions? Like when you guys walked away from that conversation?
I think we both felt more known and seen.
Really?
Yeah, because we were sharing parts of our heart and instead of just updating on our days, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And it was more refreshing to our soul, honestly. So,
will you do it again?
Ask the questions,
Yeah. Will you like have more intentional relationships like that with other friends or with this friend in particular?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've even tried to ask my coworkers some of the questions, and you always get different responses. Some of the questions were interesting. One of them was, "What's your story?" which is a really vulnerable question that I don't think I would feel comfortable asking more than a handful, but just what are something you're excited about? Something that's more than a 1 or 2 word answer.
Yeah.
What was the most enlightening question you asked? Or that made you like step back and go, oh, whoa. Or that maybe brought something out of you too?
I don't remember. I should.
That's okay.
But just keeping our questions at that level was a challenge, but a good one.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. A little stretching of an experiment. Her name was Vanessa Van Edwards.
Nice.
I was not right on that.
That's okay. She is an investigator in the science of people. And it was interesting because it was just shifting. Instead of asking, how are you? Asking, what's been the best part of your day?
Yeah.
And it is like simple little changes of us being more intentional about how we get to know people and how we engage with them.
I think along those lines with being intentional, being intentional with like questions and like getting to deeper questions, but like even initiating with like meeting up. Like for me, being an introvert is exhausting, and I would sometimes rather just like sit and be cool alone. But I know I have to like reach out and say, hey, do you want to get coffee? Do you want to go on a walk? Do you want to whatever? And like initiating and like not taking it personally either if somebody doesn't reach out to me, which I think That's
hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. Honestly, friendships can feel like dating sometimes, and it sucks. Obviously, you guys haven't been in that boat in a while, but podcast for another day. But yeah, so friendships, like just initiating and not taking it personally if they don't reach out, and like understanding they have lives, they have kids, they have schoolwork, whatever it may be. They may not have the free time to just do whatever like I do. So
That's so funny because a friend texted me yesterday and she was like, hey, we haven't caught up in a long time. Would you have some time this week? And I literally had like 2 windows of time just to tell her. And I had apologized profusely afterwards because I was like, I haven't reached out to you. I am so sorry. And the first thing she said back to me was legit, you have nothing to apologize for. Like, I didn't reach out to you to shame you for not calling me. I reached out to you because I missed you and I care about you and I want to connect. And it's like, why is my gut instinct, right, to be like, oh, she's reaching out to me and I need to feel bad about the fact that I haven't reciprocated that or whatever. Like, and in that moment, I just felt like that feeling of like relief of like, oh, this isn't a healthy adult friendship that she understands that like sometimes there's going to be a give and a take in our relationship and I'm going to be able to give you more in some seasons. And in some seasons, I'm going to need you to give too. And like, that was just like one of those moments where I stepped back and I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to have like a good, healthy adult friendship that didn't feel like caught up in some of the pettiness that sometimes high school or all of that can bring into the world.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I like that she did that.
Yeah, she's a good one.
That's good.
It is so true that it feels like dating, though, don't you think?
100%.
It's exhausting.
I'm kidding. And I feel like I've had deeper hurt from friendships than I had from breakups, if I'm being real honest.
Yeah.
That's something real, though, and people don't talk about friendship hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point because like there's so many like resources on like dating, but there aren't many resources out there about friendships and how to do it as an adult. And so, yeah, it can definitely hurt like even worse sometimes.
Crystal, can I call you out?
Depends. I'm kidding. Yes.
I have always been impressed with you because you do put yourself on the line for people. You go out of your way, I think, to show up or to be there.
That's sweet.
And I think what's been interesting is that you've even taken unique approaches to finding friends in new cities.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this?
Yeah. So when I moved here to Savannah, I used a friendship app. So if you haven't heard of a friendship app,
Speaking of dating.
Yeah. It's similar to a dating app, but it's where you meet friends. So you make your whole profile and, this is me, have your pictures, but then you like swipe through and you look at other girls and read their bios, like if you have anything in common. And so I used that for a few months when I first moved here. And I met up with like, I think total 4 girls off of the app. I talked to a lot, but I still hang out with 2 of them. And one literally lives like the complex over from me. And we hung out yesterday. Hi, girls.
That's cool that you were so close in proximity, though. That is a gift.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I lived over in Pooler, that's when I met her. But like, we ended up.
Are these people you feel like you would have organically met without that app?
No, because one of the friends, she's a nurse, and she also doesn't go to Compassion. She goes to a different church, so I would have probably never seen her. The other friend, she works from home, and I would have never like run into her, been able to meet them. And the other people that I met up with that we just like never really kept hanging out, they all do different things too, where I never would have actually met them in real life. So the app was cool.
Was it, this is maybe more of a Blair problem, but like, was it awkward?
No, well, okay, the conversation wasn't awkward once I met in person. The first time I had somebody come with me and just like sit in the car because I was like, am I going to get kidnapped? I had my location on. I was like, watch me, make sure I don't get like, abducted. And so the first time I did that, but we like met at a public place. The conversation was cool because you chat on the app and then like we traded numbers and we talked for a bit first. And then when I met her in person, it was fine.
So it is legit like dating then?
It legit is like dating.
Wow.
I had to pay for food and everything. Well, I guess with dating, you may or may not. Never mind.
That's amazing. Courtney, can I ask you like specifically, what has felt like this friendship works, or these are like the keys to having solid friendships. These are the things you're looking for, etc. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think in thinking of some of my close friendships, as they're ones that have continued for months and years, the willingness to be able to talk about hard things or when someone hurts your feelings can make or break your friendship. And I mean, I had an instance recently where a friend did something that frustrated me, and my demeanor toward her changed. And she initially was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And then she came back a couple days later and was like, "You're not okay."
Yeah.
And I was like, "You're right. That thing you did really frustrated me." And I was proud of her for doing that. And her response was, I'm sorry for doing that. And I forgave her, but said, we're not going to let our years of friendship be ruined by this one little thing. And I think just generally as people in marriages, in relationships with our kids, in relationships with other females and males, we have a tendency to not speak it. And it's not even in a, you did this, to say, you made me feel this way when this happened. And if we don't, those friendships will sort of fade away because there's something that's frustrating you that you're not talking about. So being willing to talk through feelings of hurt, I think, really matters for it to be a long friendship.
Yeah. Right. That's good, because honestly, they're awkward. They're really hard to do. And especially like some of the stuff for myself, I feel like I shouldn't be mad about this.
Yeah, I felt petty. The thing was, I felt very petty. I wanted to be like, no, you're over it. But I knew I wasn't.
Right.
And she did too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a good friend too.
Yeah.
You both got some good ones.
What other type of things do you guys feel like are critical in successful friendships?
You know, I would probably say like a friend that is open and honest, and you feel like they have your best interest in mind. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, I think having similar interests is like cool, like you can connect, but at the end of the day, I feel like I've had good friends with people that I don't have everything in common with.
Yeah.
And the things that they had that made it a good friendship was that they were open and honest, and they had my best interests in mind.
Yeah, it is important. One of the things that I think as I've gotten into this phase of my life, I am more so dependent on my friends for spiritual accountability. And I feel like, yes, my husband can provide some of that, but it's also one of those things where like, I need another female to speak into that, to give me wisdom, to give me encouragement. Because I think like for me, that's been the hardest part in adult friendships, is finding someone who I feel like they're going to call me out. They're going to hold me accountable to the hard stuff, but they're also going to celebrate joys with me. And then also like, just like pray with me and do the hard stuff. And I feel like sometimes for me, that's been the hardest thing to find, is like somebody who can meet me in that heart world of like, hey, here's who Jesus is and how I need you to better reflect him. Or here's what I'm going through, and let me walk with you through that season, because this is difficult, but we can do it through the strength of the Lord, type of a thing. Like that's been really hard for me as an adult to find. Is that something you guys feel like has been an easier process, or you found that person to depend on? And how did you get to a place with that person? Because I do think, especially for women, there's a really hard expectation of, hey, I could use some spiritual guidance, development, support, but also recognizing, I know these people are busy. I know you've got 2 kids. Add me to your schedule so that we can have deep heart talks and you can help convict me in hard places. Like, that's a big ask to ask someone. But do you guys feel like you found that, and what's been helpful in helping you find that?
Do you want to go first? Or
I mean, I feel like for me, it happens the most in the context of a structured small group, because we know that's what we're coming to talk about. And I think I do have them with some of my very long friends. I have 2 girls that one I was friends with since first and another since 5th grade. And so we do catch up, but want to know, man, I'm going through this and it's really hard. And if you think about me, please pray for me. And we'll text when things happen. Because we talked about the level 2 and the level 3 questions, but to talk about your relationship with the Lord, whether you're calling somebody to something deeper and or asking for it, it's just another layer of vulnerability that to get there is not always natural. And so sometimes it's easier, maybe if you kind of know what you're getting into, if you were to say, hey, let's go out for lunch. I'm really kind of thinking through this and praying through this, and I want you to walk with me.
Yeah.
Maybe that helps. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say for me, unfortunately, I don't have many, sometimes if I feel like I don't have any at all, people that I can like really say all the deep things to. And unfortunately, I wish I could give you a better answer for that, but that's something that I'm still trying to figure out and how to actually get there. So,
well, even like Crystal and I, you have had conversations with me where you'll be telling me something relatively deep, probably not your deepest, darkest thoughts.
Yeah.
But then you'll say to me, which it like convicts my soul. You're like, you haven't told me anything in a while. And I realize there are a lot of friendships that I like provide a listening ear, but I don't do a lot of the sharing. And I think that that's important to recognize too, is that like friendships are equal investment. Like we do have to, as much as yes, there are seasons when we give and we take, there does have to be giving and taking in every relationship. And we can't just be somebody's pillar because eventually that's going to hurt us. And then also like, we can't just be somebody's, every time I come to them, I'm crying and I'm emotional and I'm in a desperate situation. And I don't say that flippantly, but just like truthfully, there are some of my friends who probably would be like, all Blair does is come to me when she has a problem instead of like bringing my highs to them too. So like, how do you think we get to places with people where we can do that?
Yeah. I will be honest, I haven't figured that out yet.
And that's okay. I mean, some of this this podcast too is like we don't have all the answers and we're navigating them together and just like hoping we find the Lord in the midst of that and he helps us through this journey too.
Yeah.
I think you are better at that than you think though, because I've had conversations with you too where you were like, I've really tried to set aside time to read my Bible and just sit and listen and pray, and I can see the way that it's reflected in the way that I go about my day and my worship. And it did impact me and thought, wow, I really need to figure out a time to do that because I know it does make a difference. And so just inserting that in a way with others is an encouragement. So be encouraged that.
You guys are hyping me up a little.
Friendship.
But I will say, I think I'm going to try using like tips I learned from that conference, asking more intentional questions. I haven't been able to do that yet. And then even with the sermon this past Sunday, like just being more intentional with people. I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Update coming soon.
Yeah.
Right? What type of things, Courtney, obviously you've been in these friendships. You've got a lot of solid mom friendships, some of them from here in the church. Like, what type of things have stood out to you or meant the most to you in your friendships?
I think it is that when the storms come on either side, knowing that, yes, I'm still here with you. And I think for me, I want to be the pillar. But when I have hard things, I'll just retreat into myself or just share it with my spouse.
Yeah.
But they want to carry it too. And so it's a really true friendship where you're both kind of being the pillars at some time. And I want them to come to me with their joyful tears and their hard tears. And I want to pray for them. I want to pray for them when they're not there. And like you said, your spouse can have some of your spiritual development, but girls bring a different thing as well that is irreplaceable. And doing life alone is hard. It's when I think about that survey of how many are doing it alone, but doing it alone when hard things come it feels insurmountable.
100%.
That was good. Can I also say,
you can.
Might be a little vulnerable for me. But anyway, at one point in life, I had a relationship and that person was like my go-to person. And then post that, I'm in a new city and like, everything's new and different. And I remember at one point, I felt like I had like no friends and I was like really sad about a lot of things. I was like, nobody likes me, everybody hates me and stuff. And that obviously wasn't true. I was just new to a new town. And I remember like literally crying in my bathroom one night and I had music playing in the background. I was just like praying. I was like, God, can you just bring community to me and like, be here for me. And then the song Run to the Father by Courtney Carnes came on. And like, I just felt so like seen by God. Like he was like, I'm here with you. Like you're not alone. Like even if you don't actually have friends, like you have a friend in me. And I felt really encouraged in that moment. And then like he brought different people in my life right after. And I was just like, Thanks, God. So I say all that to say, even if you are in a season where you feel like you don't have people, like God still is your friend, and that sounds so cheesy and cliche, but He really is.
Yeah.
If you believe in God and you have a relationship with Him, but you can just pray and ask, and He will bring people and community into your life, and you just have to be patient and like work on it.
I think that is so true. Is like He cares about community, and He wants us to have it. Like He did not intend for us to do this alone, or to like. I mean, Jesus had disciples. He had friends, and like it's such a cheesy representation, but like watching The Chosen and seeing those friendships played out on screen is like, oh my goodness, Jesus was friends with these people. Like that's a beautiful reminder to me that like if Jesus did it, I am not better than it. I do not get to just say like, oh, my husband and my cat are my friends. Like I need to work at this. I need to be invested in it because it matters to God. It mattered to Jesus. And so it better matter to me. And that means that I'm going to have to put in the work. I'm going to have to live through some of the awkwardness of like figuring out if this is my person or not. And I also have to recognize too that like, I don't need to put these expectations on friends all the time. Like sometimes I just need to live in the friendship and be okay with like however it turns out. I think sometimes we hurt ourselves before we really get running because we're like, well, that's not it. So like I think sometimes recognizing your own pitfalls maybe of like where you do that with friends.
I think what you said about expectations is really good because I think the Father wants the deepest relationship of our lives. He wants His to be the deepest. So if we put spouse or kids or friendship, female friendships, they are going to disappoint because all those people are
100%.
human. So just knowing, expecting that humans will at some point disappoint you. And then that's really where the rubber meets the road of forgiveness, coming to each other because our identity is rooted in Jesus, not in our friendships and our kids and our
Amen. It's gold. Speaking of that, we have to be honest about, too, as adults, the level of investment we are willing to put into friendships, our work ethic in friendships, and then also, like, the way in which we engage with them. So for you guys, is that something that is hard to figure out the buy-in you're going to have with friends? Is that an expectation you set up front, like, hey, this is the amount of time I have, or this is my hope for us as we move forward or whatever? Like, is that a conversation you have, or is that something that's organic, or is that something that has ever been a challenge for you?
I've never had that conversation, but I feel like it's probably not a bad idea, like to say this is what I'm expecting out of it, but maybe not like right when hi, I'm Crystal and I want to hang out with you 24/7. You probably don't want to do that, but that's a good idea. And even thinking about that for myself, like what do I actually want out of this? I'm going to think on that more.
Fair.
Yeah, I've definitely never done it. It's an interesting thought because most of my friendships have just progressed organically, but part of me, there's some that I wish, we did hang out more often or go deeper quicker. So I don't know if those conversations would have changed that maybe.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's something to say about like addressing expectations when things come up and you thought that it would be one way. And if you do feel slighted about it or like just confused, like getting clarification, like I can't think of a specific example right now, but like addressing those things when they do come up, I definitely think that's important to do, and I have done in the past too. But I feel like for me at least, I don't know until like it happens, and I'm like, oh, I should probably mention something about this.
Yeah, and I could see the benefit also being if you're in a stage of life where you're not able to meet expectations, being willing to say no. And I know that sounds really hard, but if they're saying, I want you to pick my kid up from school every day and saying, I love you and I want to be friends with you, but I'm just not at a stage in life where I'm able to support you in that way. So I think it does give the opportunity to say for the other person to share, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though, because I think that there are some friendships we have to be okay with saying no to.
Yeah.
Like, and unfortunately, I just don't think that probably happens a lot. Like, I feel a lot of that guilt where if my friend asks me something, they're trusting me to do something, and so I need to follow through, or else they're going to feel disappointed in me or discouraged that I couldn't meet that expectation or something. And so, like, recognizing, too, there are some friendships we do just need to say, like, this is not where it's at. Yeah. Or, like, there are friendships from my childhood that it's like, we're still friends, but should we be? You know what I mean? Like that question of like, is this one that I'm willing to put in the work for? Yeah. Or am I just willing to say, this was a great friendship, and that season, I don't know, does that sound mean?
No, I was just about to say, I love the word no. I love a good boundary. So, sorry, but if you ask me to pick your kids up from school every day, I will say no.
I'm not asking you.
Okay. Maybe here and there if I have some time. But, like, I think that it goes back to the expectations. Like, you are asking me to have this sort of investment, but, like, I actually can't, you know? And just being honest about it. Don't say yes if you actually can't. Or if you do say yes thinking that you can, when things change and you realize that you can't, communicate that. Ooh, communication. That's a big thing.
It is, yeah.
There is an interesting point of, like, thinking about places you've lived and those friendships of, like, I hate to say, is it worth maintaining? But I don't really do a lot of social media. So that kind of, I think, affects how we view them as, like, friends versus acquaintances. I don't know. It's interesting because I think of people at different workspaces where we were really close. We talked a lot.
Yeah.
But after that, we didn't.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of those things that I'm coming from is, like, we had a lot in common back then and a lot of stuff that made us friends. And those things have changed. Not that those friendships aren't value or didn't mean anything, but they've changed now.
Yeah.
And, like, realizing that that's okay, that friendships evolve and that they change. And sometimes, like, I don't know. It sounds mean to be like, we're not friends. Because we're friends, but we're not close friends anymore. And that's okay.
It's natural, I think.
That was a really depressing way to, close it out. but
No. Well, let's...
Final thoughts on friendship, you guys. Is there anything that you wish you would have known or anything you're hoping for that people might be able to feel or hear or feel seen hearing?
I think from my personal experience, I would say you have to be willing to make the first move. Because I know even as a 36-year-old woman, I still think, I don't know if they really want to hang out with me, or I don't have enough time to give, or I can have a huge list in my head of reasons why they're going to say no. But for most of my friendships, someone had to take the initiative. And especially if it's, like, between two introverts, someone has to ask. So I think just continuing to put yourself out there. I think, I mean, the app is a way to do that, or asking someone at church. I mean, lunch or coffee or something short, because to do this life alone is, to do this life period is hard. To do alone is really hard. So just continue to make effort to try to make friends and ask those hard questions.
You said something to me not long ago, Courtney, and you said, don't say someone else's no for them. And that is such good advice, because I am very much so that person who I will say no 5 times in my head before I've even asked them and convince myself that I shouldn't ask them. But realistically, like, I'm saying no for them, and I need to give them the chance to, like, because most of the time when I do make the bold step to go ask, they say in reciprocation, yes, I've been looking for this too. And, like, that's such wise advice that I got from you, and it's good.
It was not mine. It was given from somebody else, because I also have a great job of saying their no for them in my head as well.
Well, them through you to me was beautiful.
Good advice. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Anything from you?
I definitely agree. Initiating, I think, is key and something that I've been learning to do recently. And then I would say, having patience, because I think I want, like, the immediate best friend, like, overnight, and that's not realistic. And
you want Instant Pot best friend?
Exactly. Yes, but I have the slow cooker. The crock pot. Yeah.
Look at us with these analogies.
But yeah, just being patient and knowing that if I do continue to be consistent and put in the work, hopefully things will, flourish. May not, like, I may, we just decide it's not a good fit. But just being patient and knowing that things aren't going to happen overnight, I think would have been good to know back in the day.
Right. Because when we were younger, friendships weren't instant.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Saw people every day at school, playground, and it was just like, let's be best friends.
And I go back to that point you had, Crystal, where really, like, truly, it is something where we can bring our requests for friends to the Lord. Like, He cares about that. And that's, like, really important to remember. Because I think a lot of times for myself, I think friendship depends on me. And it does. It does take work. But, like, also, I can ask God to help me in that too. And He's going to listen and love me through that and help point me in the direction that He has wanted me to already be in. So I think that that's some great advice today. Thank you guys for being vulnerable and being willing to share with us, because I do think there's so many people who feel the same way and just don't know that it's common.
Yeah.
So thank you for being vulnerable to share it with us.
Thanks for having us
having
on. This is so fun.
Really fun.
Yay! Thanks for listening to Good Question and for bringing your questions with love and curiosity in your heart. If you would like to provide feedback, we'd love for you to rate the podcast, subscribe, and even get notifications of when our next episode is going to drop. Don't forget, we're going to discuss male friendship dynamics in this next episode, so you can get notified of when that's going to be released. We'd love to have you join us again. But we also want to encourage you, if you have a question or something you're trying to navigate, we would love to be able to talk about it. You can submit those to us at online@compassionchristian.com, and I would love to be able to talk about those and figure out maybe how we can do that together. But we hope you guys will join us next time as we navigate faith one good question at a time.